Have you ever wondered who's the father of psychology? Well, it's not Sigmund Freud, that's for sure. It's actually this guy, James McKeen. Today we'll learn about his life, work, and legacy. Let's get started. James McKeen Cattell was born on May 25, 1860, in Easton, Pennsylvania. He studied at Lafayette College, where he earned his bachelor's degree in 1880. From there, he traveled to Germany to study under Wilhelm Wundt, the man considered to be the founder of experimental psychology at the University of Leipzig. In 1886, Cattell earned his Ph.D. under Wundt, becoming one of the first Americans to do so in psychology. When Cattell returned to the United States, he became the first professor of psychology in the U.S. at the University of Pennsylvania in 1888. However, just 3 years later, he moved to Columbia University, where he remained for the majority of his career. Like his mentor, Wundt, Cattell believed that psychology should be a laboratory science. This means that psychologists should use the scientific method to study the mind, and that experimentation is a necessary tool for this endeavor. While Wundt believed that the goal of psychology should be to study the human mind in general, Cattell took a different approach. He believed that psychology should focus on individual differences, that is, the unique ways in which each person thinks, feels, and acts. This emphasis on individual differences led Cattell to be considered the father of differential psychology. In addition to his research, Cattell was also a strong advocate for the application of psychology to real-world problems. He believed that psychological research could and should be used to improve education, business, and public policy. As such, he is often credited with being the father of applied psychology as well. Now let's look at some of his key contributions to psychology. First, mental testing and psychometrics. Cattell was a strong advocate for the measurement of mental abilities. In fact, he coined the term mental test. Back in 1890, he developed some of the very first tests to measure reaction time, memory, and sensory perception. These early tests were far from perfect, but they laid the groundwork for later intelligence and psychological testing. Cattell believed that mental tests could be used to identify students who were at risk of falling behind academically, or to match employees to jobs that were a good fit for their skills. He also believed that these tests could be used to study the changes in mental ability over time. For example, he was interested in studying how mental abilities change during childhood and adolescence. His work in this area paved the way for the development of educational psychology as a subfield of psychology. Second, individual differences. As we mentioned earlier, Cattell was one of the first psychologists to emphasize the importance of individual differences. He believed that psychology should focus on understanding the unique ways in which each person thinks, feels, and acts, rather than trying to understand the human mind in general. This emphasis on individual differences led to the development of differential psychology as a subfield of psychology. Differential psychology is the study of the differences between people in terms of their psychological traits and abilities. This field has had a major impact on our understanding of human psychology, and has led to the development of many important psychological tests and measures. Third, academic leadership. Cattell was a highly respected academic who helped to establish psychology as a legitimate scientific discipline in the United States. He was the first professor of psychology in the U.S., and he went on to chair the psychology department at Columbia University, where he helped to train a generation of psychologists. Among his students were Edward L. Thorndike, the father of educational psychology, and Robert S. Woodworth, who made significant contributions to the study of motivation. Fourth, scientific journals and professional organizations. Cattell was also a prolific writer who helped to advance psychology through his work as an editor and author. He founded and edited several important scientific journals, including Science in 1894, and the Psychological Review in the same year. These journals provided a forum for the publication of cutting-edge psychological research. Cattell also helped to establish the American Psychological Association, or APA, in 1892. He served as the APA just 3 years after the organization was founded. Fifth, applied psychology. Finally, Cattell was a strong advocate for the application of psychology to real-world problems. He believed that psychological research could and should be used to improve education, business, and public policy. For example, he was interested in using psychology to develop better methods for teaching and to identify students who were at risk of falling behind academically. He also believed that psychology could be used to improve employee selection and training in businesses. Additionally, he advocated for the use of psychology in law enforcement and the military. Later, life and legacy. In 1917, Cattell was forced to leave Columbia after the U.S. entered World War I. Despite being a pacifist and a German speaker, Cattell opposed U.S. involvement in the war. This stance made him a controversial figure at the time, but it ultimately did not affect the course of the war. After leaving Columbia, Cattell continued his work in science publishing and as an advocate for academic freedom. He died on January 20, 1944, in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. In conclusion, James McKeen Cattell was a pioneering American psychologist who made significant contributions to the field of psychology through his work in mental testing, his emphasis on individual differences, his academic leadership, His work in scientific journals and his advocacy for applied psychology, Cattell helped to establish psychology as a legitimate scientific discipline in the United States. His work also had a major impact on the development of several important subfields within psychology, including educational psychology and industrial organizational psychology. Furthermore, he significantly influenced future generations of psychologists through his mentorship and training. Overall, James McKeen Cattell's legacy continues to be felt today, and he remains an important figure in the history of psychology. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.